We're back. First time in 5 years. For most of you guys that are listening in, this is the first episode of what is basically the second season of the Newstrength Way. There's 100 podcasts back in the annals pre-2020 when Nathan and I were getting started here. And today we're back in the studio recording number one of our next season. Number one of what we hope will be a new layer, a new story into what is Newstrength and the legacy that we're leading. So you've got me here, Jacob.
Yes, and Nate is here. Nate is here and ready to roll. And thanks for the intro, Jake. I feel more excited than nervous now to get into it. And I think it's exciting. Like, it's really exciting because, as you mentioned, that 100 episodes that are sitting there, I think of the growth we've had since then and the growth so many people have had since then. And to think there'll be a point where we reflect back on the start of season 2 and then there'll be that all again. So let's get after it. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so I guess there's no better way to start than kicking off with where we started. So what got us into the fitness world? Obviously, there's been a lot of evolutions of Newstrength over the last few years and quite significant evolutions in our own lives alongside that that's really shaped where we are right now, where I feel like that we're more clear than ever the value that we have for not only the people inside the gym, but the wider community and who we want to serve, who we want to be here for, and who we want Newstrength to represent. And I think it's a gap that a lot of the fitness industry isn't hitting in with. I feel like there's a big push towards the person who's got their whole life centered around fitness. And for us, that's not where we have the most impact. For us, fitness is a vehicle to then make the rest of your life better. And that's what we want to focus in on with our community, with the people that we serve, and with this podcast here. It's not about the guy that's spending 10 hours in the gym. Mm-hmm. It's about the mum, the dad that are trying to make the most out of their lives in training, and then using that as a way to better their lives for their families, to write their own stories for their future, and to lead their families into a future and a life and a story that they're inspired by, and they can continue that along for their kids. So let's get started and let's take it back to where it all began. Obviously, it's been a long time coming, but Nathan, I want you to take us off with what got you into training and what got you into fitness, and then we'll take it from there.
All right.
You can keep it short. It doesn't have to be, we don't need an hour-long episode to start us off.
Yeah, so I played a lot of sport growing up, mainly rugby league. And then I eventually got to the point after about 11 years of playing that I wanted to chase bodyboarding, surfing, and just a different pursuit. And then in that transition, I didn't have the same physical outlet, I guess. And actually it was my eldest brother that was going to the gym. Then my youngest brother started going with him. And I still, I just seen it as such a surface level. I was like, oh, why would you care about like that? What's the point? And then I got to the point where my own like mental health, emotional health wasn't where it should be for all the things I had in my life. And then I remember tagging along with them once, and then how I felt after that was just such a big night and day difference. And then essentially that's what got me started. And then the pursuit of just showing up consistently for myself and seeing the compounding results from one very hesitant young man, I would have been 17 or 16 at the time then, to someone that now uses it as a tool like we spoke about to go through. But the transition into it was essentially by chance that they were going. I was in a spot where that day I just said, I'll just come with. And then that got me started into the journey, and then deep dove in all things strength and conditioning. And I know you and I had a lot of, whether you'd like to call them mentors online, like your Juggernaut and things like that. And then I really went deep into that and found the value of training and the pursuit of strength. And I loved what it could do for me and can do for others. And I just hated the setting that it was getting done in. And for me, that was in Anytime Fitness. And I'd find myself avoiding peak hours because there was like so much ego and like no real culture or sense of community or anything like that. And then I wanted more from it essentially. And I guess if we keep the story short, I sought that out and we met, except the training was the thing that facilitated the change I needed in myself, to show up how I wanted to show up and live life on my terms and grab the steering wheel.
Nice. Let's dive into just a little more on that. Like, what was it like before that point? And then how much of a shift was that with the training that allowed you to do that?
Beforehand, like, I don't think I understood how much playing rugby league consistently and always, like, I pursued that as much as I could. Like, I always tried to do my absolute best and I always tried to get better at every single aspect of it and win the trophies or make the teams, and having that consistent pursuit. And I've done the same thing with bodyboarding, but I don't know if it's just by chance in that time where my mental health suffered. I'm not, to be honest, could have just been by chance, but I essentially got to the point where I lost a lot of my perceived identity, I guess you'd call it, where I think I was 16. I think at that age, you think you know who you are and you have it all figured out and you think you're a lot more mature than you are. And then pretty much just got blindsided with what people would commonly know as generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. And I just didn't know what to do. And training cleared the noise. So once I found that, then that allowed me to, I guess, consistently seek it out to regulate myself, to start to feel like I was back on track. And that alongside with seeing a psychologist and things like that. But like, I was still, before the training and the strength training and that pursuit, like, I was still active. Like, I still was pursuing things whilst it felt as though I wasn't like physically there. And if anyone's had GAD, they'd know what that is. Like, you're there, but you're not actually there. Like, I remember going to like jump rocks with mates and jumping off like the highest things we could find into the water, because that 2 seconds of falling, like, I'd have essentially silence, or like my own brain would just go quiet just for enough. So I'd do that, or take the biggest wave I could on the day, because for that short period of time, I wouldn't be stuck in my own thoughts. So it was like this temporary Band-Aid escape that essentially didn't work. And then what strength training did, it allowed me to have, instead of a Band-Aid, it was this compounding foundational change within myself to recreate my identity. And then what it allowed me to do was actually find joy back in those things I used to get joy from, and then go through from there. So I guess to answer your question, to wrap that up, like, I think life was simple because I was young and I was in pursuits all the time, and I had a lot of my identity wrapped up in who I thought I was. And then I had that pivotal moment where it's like everything kind of come crashing down, and then I had nothing to lean on that would normally give me that return. And then that's where, by chance or fate or whatever you want to call it, that's where I found strength training. And then strength training was essentially that foundation I've rebuilt myself off of.
Yeah, and that's something that we find really powerful across for the last 10, 13 years. I think we've been in the industry, that how much it can be that staple for people that are going through, whether it's anxiety like yourself in that stage there, or whether it's just some tough times with relationships, with their own health. It's often as that thing they can just hold on to and they can rebuild from. They can see themselves getting better when they put in some application, they put in their time, they can see themselves grow from that there. And I think one of the things that it also does is it builds belief, because when you see that change, you see that there's a future there that you might not be able to see it quite now, or you might not have been able to see it, but you started to see some momentum there, and you know that maybe what I've been going through isn't going to be there forever.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. I think it creates these small, like, little pieces of evidence that accumulate over time to create confidence that there is something on the other side of this, and whatever that hurdle is that the individual's facing. So for me, it was my own mental health. For others, it might be a temporary part in their life with their career, could be family, relationships, whatever it is. But I think it does really highlight that it is temporary as you accumulate these small pieces of evidence to show you that like you can move past it, you can be more resilient, you do have all these things here, I guess, on your side and in your character that you can utilize and develop, and use strength training as a tool. And that's what we always talk about. It's like it's not about the training itself as much as we love it. It's what training can offer you and how can we leverage training to make sure we can show up as the version of ourselves that's moving forward, and that's leading for us, our families, and influencing our families and communities. And it's creating that momentum and creating that foundation that we can build upon from there.
100%, man. I'm going to quickly dive in from there and go into a little bit of like what got me started into the training world. And some of it's very, very similar to you as well in that there. But I guess as I've gotten older and as we've both become dads, things have started to, what it's the Steve Jobs thing, like it's really easy to connect the dots in reverse. And I think like I've started to look back on a lot of other moments that really put me into a place that then when I did find strength and I did find training, that was what made that such an impactful piece for me. And I think a lot of it was like when we were growing up, my nan was a big influential figure for our family, and that like she was the kind of person who's like most people have got somebody that's there, like the bright spot for them, that like shows them that you can believe in yourself, that you can do the things that you want to be able to do. And Nan, for everyone in our family, was that person there. And basically around the time, I think I was 12, turning 13 at the time, is Nan got lung cancer and sadly passed away. And I think what happened there was like we all went from where inside of our family that everyone was really like they had somebody like that to lift them up. And not that anyone else in the family wasn't like that, but that was when you've got that spark there for you from somebody, like you kind of rely on that, and everyone around them kind of relies on that there. And I think for a lot of us in the family, then we kind of lost a little bit of that, and it probably contracted everyone a little bit. Like I know I saw it in myself, my confidence sort of went down, I got a little bit quieter and didn't really have that same level of spark that I feel like that I had before that point. And obviously you go through your teenage years, sometimes that sort of is just the change of becoming a teenager and change of identity there. But I feel like then the next thing I found was footy. Mm-hmm. And I had, I was a bigger kid when I was growing up. I got tall and I was solid. And I think a couple of the boys that I was mates with, that they're like, oh, just come play footy at the Oval. And I was playing soccer at the time. I was mostly watching people play soccer. Is probably more accurate. Like I was on the field, but I was mostly watching everyone else play soccer. And I think from there, a couple of boys dragged me over to have a little muck around game of footy. And one of the boys was like, oh, you're pretty good at this. Can you just come and play for our team? And I was like, you know what? This does seem like much better than soccer. Like, not to take any dig at soccer. I know I do all the time, but
don't stop now, Joe.
But I was, at the end of the day, I wasn't very great at soccer. And all of a sudden I found this thing that I was kind of good at and I had a bit of success at, and it drove me into there. And I think off the back end of that, I started to build my confidence up again. I started to feel that growth of it. I felt like I was wanted to be part of the team. Like people wanted me on their team in that way there. And then that really pushed me right down into the rabbit hole of like, well, if I'm good at this, how do I get even better? Yeah. And then what are the guys that the elites do? And that's probably one of the things that I always do, is I look at what are the best of the best do and how do I chase that? And one of the things is that they train. They don't just do footy training, they train in the gym, they do their fitness. And that really sent me down into the depths of getting like the bench press in the garage. And like we've probably have plenty of stories that pop up back in the podcast, like time in between getting stuck between two cars and stuck under a bench press that I'm like, oh, I can't actually lift this thing off me, but then I can't roll it down and dump it because it's going to hit mum and dad's cars and they'll be furious at me. So I reckon there was one point where I was rolling this bar down my chest while wiggling my way back on the bench to make sure the bar didn't touch the car, but I got myself out of the way and I didn't end up like stuck there on the bench until dad got home or something. So it was
things to do.
It was quite funny in those things there. But then finding training really like it then leveled up my confidence. And yeah, I gained some muscle. I got fitter, I got stronger. But the big thing is that it showed me winning. It showed me like I used to get stuck under this 30 kilo bar and now I did 40. If I've done 40 now and I put in 6 weeks or whatever that time is, maybe I can do 50. Maybe I can do 100 one day if I keep on going. And that I think quickly shifted my belief of what was possible. like what I thought was strong, what I thought was the boundary of what I could achieve changed.
Yeah, is that similar to what you then gave you before she passed?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing is I think that training became that same figure for me of driving that belief that I could do what I wanted to do and I could chase things down. And then eventually things started to shift. Like I then was like, well, I'm chasing down. What am I going to do? Like I had no idea what I was doing in school. Like I was smart. Like I knew my dad's uncle tried to like ship me off to King's College because he was like, oh, Jacob's a smart kid. He's intelligent. We need to send him to a really good school and he can get a job. He can be a lawyer. He can be a doctor or something like that, which is, and mum and dad were like, what do you want to go on? I was like, I don't really want to leave my friends for one. And then, and I was really nervous because I don't know whether I want to be a doctor. I don't know whether I want to be a lawyer. And I really just never knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I hear you there, man. I was the exact same. Like I didn't know. I did not know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want a 9 to 5 or to like jump into the system. So to say, nothing against the system. I just couldn't see it happening. I was like, I know it's not. I knew what it wasn't. And then I think obviously as this story grows and evolves, you can see how us coming together and being like-minded and having sharing values where we've gotten to the point now. But I definitely knew the 9 to 5 wasn't for me, but I didn't know what actually was there.
Yeah, so I basically like found that shift from training and increasing my belief, and I was like, well, if this is the power that's got on me, like I'm gonna dive all in on this. And the dream was to be like, obviously everyone knows I'm a hardcore Sea Eagles fan. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be the strength and conditioning coach at the Sea Eagles, and I've got to go through. I've got to go do sports science. Ultimately, that's where I ended up going. I went down and studied at Arimba and went through. And basically, like I think one of the things that happened was like I was in the world in the sports science realm, and I probably wasn't quite fitting in. Like there was a lot of stuff that was happening that wasn't what I imagined it being. Like I imagined it was all going to be about like in the sport, in the trenches as such. And that was around the same time that we sort of met when we started working together. It was like I was in the trenches in our day-to-day work, but then I was going and spending so much time in the books to study and to do this research study that was my honors. And I did pretty well at it, but like to the point where I had a PhD scholarship conditional that I got 85 on my mark. Ended up getting, what was it, 84.4 or something. Like basically it was within the mark. It was like if I got half a percent more, it rounded me up and I would have been pushed into it.
Did someone not like you or something?
I think so. I think there might have been, but the key piece of that there is like, I never really applied myself in that way there because it didn't feel right to me. Yeah. And at the time, but it was all that I knew because that's what everyone said. It was like, you should go down, like you go through, you do your honors, then you do your PhD, then you go get a job at a uni. Like they weren't even talking about it as like, oh, you should go and be in the trenches and work in the sport for a while. I was like, no, the job opportunities are teaching it. And it just never fit right for me. It was like, I found that I love being with the people in the trenches and seeing the change that was there when we were with people. And then on the flip side, I didn't feel like I got that when I was like studying the textbooks. And even though I am very much like I do love a problem solving, like the scientific method is something that speaks to me a lot. It wasn't in the way that I imagined myself doing it. And that ultimately led to me going, oh, like I need to stay with the people. That's where it's going to make the biggest impact, I feel, for me. And what lights me up is being around people getting to make the change as opposed to talking about it in behind a science paper. Yeah. And ultimately that shifted us to being around the same place at the same time, where we ended up going, well, there's these consistent themes that are happening across fitness and across the strength conditioning world that then we just didn't quite sit with where we wanted to go. And I guess that led to us deciding it was time for us to make a change. And I guess I'll dive in if you can, Nath, and what's it look like? Like what were some of those things that we felt like, or that you felt wasn't right in the industry as a whole that led to you being like, oh, screw it, it's time to make a change?
Rip them apart, Jacob. No, so at that time, essentially, Jake and I, again, like you'll see common themes here and why I think our relationship's rock solid and lasted. It's the longest relationship I've had. Actually, I think, what were we, 13 years? Yeah. Like training got more popularized. Like it got to that point where it was something I think this group of people done or athletes done, but it didn't seem like it was for everyone. And I think more people had experiences like me where it's like, I can actually use this as a tool, leverage it so I can live life on my terms. I can do this and I can show up to the people who matter most to me in a way that matters most. So this story I'm writing is one that I can be happy with at the end of the day, and I can rest easy, so to say. But with that, and I think with its popularity and the market growing, there was obviously opportunity for people to leverage that monetarily, and they could leverage it. And it was a lot of like, the fitness industry become a lot of marketing, a lot of smoke and mirrors, and like transparently, a lot of anabolic steroids and drug use while selling something else. And I think the integrity, I know that's something you and I share, and it's a really big value of the gym. Like the integrity side of things, just I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle a business model that was selling a training service that essentially wasn't even what it said it was. Like in terms of, I think an easy one here, Jake, to touch on is like how popular was HIIT training, and it wasn't even HIIT training, it was circuit training. So they'd pull all the data of high intensity interval training and say, this is amazing, look what this would do. And then they'd put someone through a circuit and call it high intensity interval training. So for people that were a little bit more in the know and understood, it was like, it just felt wrong. It felt wrong that the industry was, I guess, saying one thing, doing another, and then essentially just profiting off it. And it wasn't about the people. It wasn't about the progress. It was about the business model and what made sense business-wise. And then for you and I, it was always people first. And whether that's the right or the wrong thing to do as a business, I really don't care, because I want to be able to have a business that fulfills me emotionally and not just monetarily. So for you and I, it was always people first. It was through proven methods, and it was through an actual like deep connection and understanding. And the industry just wasn't doing that. There wasn't understanding, there wasn't depth, and there wasn't a pathway that made sense for someone to actually be on a journey of improvement on a layer that really mattered. And I feel as though the industry with that boom, it was, I guess, it was the villain to us. Like for Jake and I, it was the opposite. It stood against our core values. And I think it was the more that exploded, and the more it was popularized, the more it pushed you and I to do our own thing. So as much as it frustrated and it disappointed me as well, I think the villain had to be there for us to go on our own journey to push back against it and make a training model that makes sense for the individual and the individual that we want to work with.
Yeah, I think we talk about the idea of it's like hype without heart fitness. Like that's the model that the industry was pushing towards. Like obviously now it's probably even more so, where you've got the online coaching space of people who've never worked with somebody in the real world. You've got the, as you said, like butchering the science. And obviously I'm a science guy, that it really burned me when I'd see stuff like that, and I'd get too frustrated. Like you said there, like dumbbell punches are not eliciting the same response as like treadmill sprints or black sprints in those like high intensity pieces there. And we don't need to like go, I don't want to go too far into the depths there. But
like, whilst you're on that as well, the thing is, most of the people selling that would not be caught dead doing it.
Never.
That was the worst thing, where it's like, I know, like say, like I know the people, let's say F45s, for instance, like there was so many people running F45s for a business model. Then you say, what do you do for your training? Like, what do you actually believe in? They're like, oh, I do this. And it was strength and conditioning and periodized training 99% of the time.
Bodybuilding, like.
Yeah, exactly. And then it would go, oh, but you guys are going to do this, and this is really good for these reasons. And I would be like, fuck off. Like, honestly, like, fuck off. Like, I'm all for people doing something rather than nothing, don't get me wrong, but like I feel like the lack of integrity there, and I think that eventually fell to it falling apart alongside other reasons. But you're right, it was a lot of hype. It wasn't a lot of heart, and it lacked depth. Like it really lacked depth in the understanding of the consumer, in the actual knowledge of a training process and how someone should be met or where they should be met.
Well, even when you jump into that, like, what was the solution when somebody wasn't getting the result they wanted in those instances there? It's like, well, I'm doing a session every day. I'm training 6 days a week. What do you do now? I should just do doubles. Like you need to do two of, like, I'm not getting stronger. Yeah, just do 2 sessions a day of what, the same thing? Yeah, just the same thing. Just do the circuit twice.
Yeah.
And you're like,
it's absolutely
how does that fix any problem? Like
the worst thing with that, Hodds, as well, is I've met so many people like through this process, and we've worked with so many people that got results through being told to do that, and they think that's what they have to do to get results, so therefore they don't even try, because they have variables come up in their life, like they have kids, their career changes, or whatever it may be. They have a significant change in their life, and because they were never educated and never understood, they think they have to do double days, they have to eat out of Tupperware containers, and they go, yeah, I know what I need to do, I just can't do it. And then it's about, do you actually think that's the only way to facilitate this outcome? And then once you break that down and that belief system's being created by something like that they've gone through, it's more, yes, okay, they got results at the time. They might have had this really positive impact, except they can't continue to utilize it as a tool because they don't have any understanding or depth of knowledge with that. So what happens? Their life changes, they have kids, they have a career progression, which we want to do. Like we want to have those things happen, but we need to see training as an adaptable tool that can be used, and that only can be done like that with an understanding. So I sit down with so many people, like I do a lot of our strategy sessions and consultations. When they first come in, they have this fixated idea on what will get them results because that's what they've done in the past and that's what they were told to do, not taught to do. There was no teaching involved in the process. It was like, do this, do double days, eat this meal plan that's generic, and they try to reincorporate that into their life, and they do it unsuccessfully, obviously. And what that does, it accumulates evidence to show them that they can't do it. And then you see mums, dads, busy professionals that go, I just can't do it right now. Like I don't have the time. I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the time to do that. And it's from being so fixated on what they think needs to happen to work, when realistically, like the industry has done them a disservice if they're at that point.
Yeah, we talk all the time about like, and it's harsh because it's an industry that we love and that we want to make a change in, but the industry sucks. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And some of that is like, the industry sucks because it's been short-sighted. Like at the end of the day, the industry's 25 years old. Mm-hmm. Like, so it's only been short-sighted because it's only operated for this long and nobody knows how to do it yet. Like we're starting to get to where you're getting some people starting to figure out things like putting in smart business practices, and those things, but we're still far away from being able to understand this. Like, and a coach's responsibility is deep. Like at the end of the day, you've got to be able to have a really strong understanding of anatomy and physiology. You have to have way more of an understanding of psychology than what you get taught. Yeah. You have to have the people skills. You have to have all these things. And then because the industry is so low layered, like everyone expects you to be able to market and sales and stuff too. Like you're expected to be an expert at everything to be able to be successful in the fitness industry. And it's no wonder why we haven't made progress as overall, because we're trying to do a bunch of stuff that you're not actually taught how to do. And the only solution that people have got to is like short-sighted answers. So whether that's being, oh, let's sell these 6-week challenges and we'll just get more and more people in the doors every time, and you just keep on cycling through them because not everyone stays, but that's their problem. The reason why they didn't stay is because they didn't get results in a way that works for them, in a way that's actually going to last and be able to fit their lifestyle. They've been forced into a square peg into a round hole because we don't have any better answers as an industry, because that's all we've been doing. And the reason why we don't have any better answers is because we're not trying to build something. They're just trying to profit off of it right now. Yeah. And for every person that you said that, like we talked to, that is like, oh, they did get results when they were in their 20s doing that system where they were doing double days, they were on the strict meal plan.
But of course, like,
there's 10 of them that are burnt out.
Yeah,
like that's
exactly.
There's one person that got the results, and there's 10 of them that are burnt out, and they're convinced that they're the problem. And that's the big thing that we've really failed people in the fitness industry, is we've convinced people is like, oh, they didn't follow our ridiculously over the top way of doing it. It was the only way that we could figure out how to get people results, because we didn't go and look at the fundamentals. We just tried to drive it through as hard as we could. And then we've convinced them that, oh no, they're the problem. Their metabolism's not great, or whatever it might be. And at the end of the day, is like, we need to be better. And I think that's ultimately like it's where we start to get a bit fired up, and we might get
No,
on the explicit range of the
That's
podcast.
right.
But
We'll keep it rolling whilst it's there, I reckon.
let's
happy
dive
to.
in I want you to dive into Newstrength. Like, what is it that we've talked a lot about what we're not?
Yep.
Can you dive into like what do we do and who do we serve in that way? And
the last 8 years, I think Newstrength in short, we use exercise as a vehicle for change for the individual. But the only way you can do that is understanding the individual with depth. And you have to have a relationship that has depth. And that's the way we facilitate change. Like, yes, we use periodized strength and conditioning and do that in a class in a one-to-one format, except that's not what's important. Like, yes, it's science-backed. It should be. Like, it should be that. That's just
the bare minimum.
It's the standard the industry should have. Like, your sessions should have a structure and they should be leading to somewhere. If they're not, do a better job. And like we do relationships. Like our job at Newstrength, we have depth and understanding of our clientele, and we build real relationships with them, and then we educate them and we guide them with exercise and life choices to make sure that they can show up to their life how they want and what makes sense to them as an individual. And we use tools in the format. Except realistically, what we do, we help people change their life how they want to, and we give them support, confidence, accountability, and resources to do that. But the only way that we can do that and make actual change is through trust, and the only way that can happen is through depth of understanding of the individual. So when we're doing something, someone will have so much belief and conviction that we're, I guess, our integrity is there, and they can believe in the system that they'll actually adhere to it and it makes sense, and then they change their life. And that's why we have clients with us for 10, 12. What's your longest since you started in the industry?
I think I'm closing in on 14.
Yeah, that's and obviously they're friends at that point realistically, but this is because it understands them as an individual as they grow through their life, and how training and how this thing we love can be utilized and can be adaptive along the way. It isn't a set and forget thing. This is something that's adaptive and is built around the individual, and that's what we do.
Yeah, I think to put it into like a more general premise as well, as like obviously we're doing fitness, like we're running training sessions, we're teaching nutrition, we're doing a lot of the coaching side of stuff, of helping them with their lifestyle and those sort of things. But overall, we focus on building belief in people that we know they have, but they might not know they have that there. We focus on building their resilience, their ability to be able to work through those barriers that come up, because inevitably life is going to throw shit at you that you're not prepared for when it's there. Some of them are the best little things that you'll ever have, like kids. Like none of us are prepared for kids before they turn up, and the identity shift. And we'll get into we're going to do deep dives on like how we approach training for parents over some of the future episodes. But all these things that, like, in positives and negatives, life's going to throw some stuff at you that you're not prepared for, and your ability to be able to roll with the punches and have resiliency in that way there, and is going to dictate how you respond in those situations there. And one of the things that we're really big believers of is that training is a great way to start to forge that and build that, because you're basically having like a controlled like microcosm of like what life happens is through the training journey, through like when things are going good, when things are going bad, and I think it just helps build your confidence in being able to withstand those things. And lastly, like, I see training as a staple to giving you the confidence and building the pieces there that you can build the legacy and the life that you want for yourself, for your kids, for your families, for the people that, like, we've obviously worked with a lot of business owners too, for the businesses, because the business has more mouths to feed than just your family. In a lot of those cases, some of those guys are feeding 50 families by what they do. And they see that that training is an important part of how do they utilize that to then put them in the best position so that they can make sure that they're doing what they need to do to feed all those mouths and to lead everyone in their organization to where they want to be. So I think we really focus on, we build belief, we build resilience, and we help people craft their own legacy. I think that's a great spot for us to wrap up on. So Nath, to wrap things up, like, what would you say to somebody like that's maybe sitting in that range of like maybe whether it's a coach or somebody that's sort of in that middle range that are trying to figure out things, and like what's the difference of like what we're trying to do versus the rest of the industry?
I think what we're doing is creating something that has substance that will outlast Jacob and I. And the only way that we can do that is to make sure, like Jacob said, with facilitating this real change that'll ripple into families and into communities, and it'll set the standard for the next generation. But the only way that we can do that through this is knowing who we can help, how we can help them. And then, like Jacob referred to before, it's creating the belief, having the resources there for them to do that, and also holding the industry, and then also our members to a standard, at a standard they know that they can hold, and being in their corner and I guess walking alongside them in that journey.
I love it, man. I think that's the best place for us to wrap up season 2, episode 1 in the books. Next week, we're going to be covering a little bit more of, we're going to get you fired up. We're going to be going into the depths of where else the fitness industry is broken, and where we're making changes in that, from the levels of, for the consumer, we've talked a little bit about, but for coaches as well, and why we're really, really passionate about making a change in the industry that we love. So thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you guys all next week on the Newstrength Way.